The JALT 2026 conference will be in Nagoya at WINC Aichi in Nagoya. It will run from Friday the 20th to Sunday the 22nd of November. Now, Friday is basically a full half day of presentations and a plenary. So Friday afternoon, there are concurrent sessions and a plenary speaker and a welcome event. So if you can make it on Friday, I really recommend it. There's a lot going on. Saturday is the busiest day of the conference. There's 2 plenaries, a lot of concurrent sessions and the Best of JALT awards. And Sunday is another busy day with concurrent sessions and a plenary and the closing ceremony. So there are 3 busy days of the conference. So please don't overlook Friday. There's a lot happening on Friday. Now, we get a lot of questions about equipment in the rooms. So each room will have a projector. It will probably have an HDMI input, but we need to check that. So please check that before the conference. You must supply your own laptop computer and adapter to connect to the projector. We get a lot of questions about that. We cannot supply computers and adapters. If you need speakers or other specialized equipment, you need to provide that yourself. We cannot provide any specialized equipment. This is because we have very limited technical support. We have 1 person on site full-time trying to take care of about 20 or 30 rooms. There are some part-time assistants, but if you take a look at my step count for the Saturday of last year's conference, I was basically running around from about 8 o'clock in the morning until about 10 o'clock at night. And I think Wayne Malcolm and all the other people on site will have a very similar thing. So all the people on site are really busy. We cannot provide you with tech support. We just don't have the staff all the time. Okay, now, the conference is an in-person conference only. We cannot provide support for online presenters. Cannot provide equipment or technical support. If you want to do a hybrid presentation with 1 person on site and another person online, that's okay, but you must take care of that yourself. So you must have 1 person in the room on site. You have to provide your own online platform, so Zoom or Google Meets, and you must provide your own equipment. And all the presenters must pay conference fees. So anybody who presents online has to pay conference fees. But you need to organize that yourself. We cannot provide any support for that. We just do not have the staff. Now, how did I get involved in the conference? Well, this was thanks to Bill Pello about 15 years ago. We both saw a presenter who turned up and just didn't have anything to present. And he just talked for about 15 minutes, made small talk, and then said, hey, sorry, I don't have time to do my presentation. And we think he probably just had nothing to present, which is basically fraud. And if anybody does this, they will be blacklisted from the conference. But that got things kicked off. How can we improve the vetting process? And it took many, many years, but finally I got involved. And in the last 2 years, I've been the program chair. So what we are trying to do is to select the submissions that are best prepared. So we want to make sure you do have something to present and you're well prepared to present it. So we use a conference management platform called Indico, which is run by Adam Jenkins and Jeff Carr. Thanks to them, they put in a lot of work. So you can log in, go to the conference website and log into the Indico system, and you will see the call for submissions. So look here, you see the call for abstracts, and you can submit a new abstract here. This is fairly simple, but you do have to create a Indico account and log in before you can submit. So we have the call for abstracts. There's a call for presentation proposals. Now, this is for vetted submissions. So these are the ones that are vetted by a committee. We have a limited number of rooms at the venue. So we cannot accept every submission, we have to cut some because there aren't enough rooms available. So the deadline for the vetted submissions is Sunday, 1st of March at midnight. There is another set of submissions, the sponsored submissions. So we have SIG forums, first-time presenters, sponsored speaker submissions. These will be announced later. So today we're just talking about the vetted submissions. Now, the big question, how many proposals are accepted? This depends entirely on the venue, how many rooms are available at the venue. Last year, we had about 519 submissions, and we had to reject about 170 of those. This year, the venue will probably have fewer rooms, so it will be more difficult to be accepted. We cannot accept all the submissions, so they're reviewed by multiple reviewers, and we accept the highest ranked submissions. So how to get accepted? Well, you have to write a good abstract. The only thing our reviewers know about you is your abstract. They don't know who you are. They don't know your background. So a well-written abstract will be accepted. A poorly written one will not be accepted. The critical thing is to show the reviewers you are well prepared to present on your topic. Now, there are other ways to present at JALT. You can join a SIG and talk to the program chair of the SIG about participating in a forum. Each SIG has a forum and they can choose their presenters. There are local SIG and chapter conferences. So the international conference isn't the only way to present at JALT. If you want to talk about classroom tasks and don't want to do an extensive literature review, your local chapter might have a MyShare meeting. So there are plenty of ways to present at JALT besides the international conference. Now, at the international conference, we have different presentation types. So the most common ones are practice-oriented presentations, which can be 30 minutes or 60 minutes. This is where you demonstrate a technique for teaching or testing or doing something in the classroom. And the most common category is research-oriented presentations, again, 30 minutes or 60 minutes, and you want to present the findings from a completed research project. So those are the most common ones, but there are a couple of other categories. There is a category of 60-minute forums. So this is when you have multiple presenters, so up to 6 presenters on a shared topical theme. So it could be a panel discussion or multiple short presentations. There are also poster presentations, which are 60 minutes. Now, we can fit a lot of poster presentations in, so usually they are all accepted. So the easiest way to be accepted is to submit a poster presentation proposal. Now, to make your presentation, you have to log into the JALT Indico system. You cannot come to the conference if you don't have an Indico account. So this is the first thing you have to do. Now, if you didn't attend JALT, the JALT International Conference last year or PAN-SIG, you probably don't have an Indico account, so you need to start a new one. If you already have an Indico account, please do not start a new one. Log in to your old one. Now, if you have multiple presenters for your presentation, all your presenters should open an Indico account before you make your submission. It creates a lot of work and a lot of problems if you try adding presenters who don't have an Indico account. Now, if they're going to attend the conference, they must open an Indico account anyway, so it's much easier if they do that first. So there is a maximum of 6 presenters per submission. Each person can present 2 times, but only once as the first presenter. The second presentation must be as a co-presenter. And all presenters must register for and attend the conference. If you do not register for the conference, your name will be removed from the system and you won't appear in the conference handbook. Now, when you make your submission, so you go to the submit an abstract section in Indico, you must submit the authors. So you should be able to find yourself, so add yourself, and you need to add yourself as a presenter or speaker. Okay, so presenters or speakers must attend the conference. Now, if you want to add your co-authors, please use add from search. So for example, I can search for Wayne Malcolm. I can find him, I can find his email address, and then I can click add to add him. So please do this. Please do not try to enter your co-presenters' names manually, because it will not link the presentation to the Indico account. And then they will have to be removed. They will have to open an Indico account and then be added back. It's much more work to do that. So please add your co-authors using add from search. Then you need to select the presenters and speakers. So every submission must have at least one presenter. Now, you can also be an author or a co-author. The authors will receive administrative emails. We often have to send announcements out. So those will go to the authors. Now, the author does not have to be a presenter. If the author is not going to attend the conference, they can stay as an author, not as a presenter. They will get the administrative emails, but it's best if the presenters who are going to the conference are authors, so they get the emails. Okay, now, obviously your presentation needs a title, and this will be required in 2 different places, and this is not a mistake. The reason for this is that your presentation title should be a maximum of 60 characters, including spaces. This is because we have to fit it into the block schedule, which we try to print on one A3 sheet of paper. So the titles have to be short enough to fit in there. Now in Indico, the main title field cannot be set with a character limit. So people submit titles that are much too long, and then we have to email them. It takes a huge amount of work to get everybody to trim their titles later. So what we've done this year, we've set a second field for the title, and we can set a character limit on that. So if your title doesn't fit into that second field, you will have to trim it. You should have the same title in both fields. This is a little bit confusing, but it's just a little quirk of Indico that the main title field cannot have a character limit. But we really do need you to keep your titles to 60 characters. Then, following that, you need to select the contribution type. So you can have a forum, 60 minutes, a poster presentation, or 30 or 60 minute practice-oriented or research-oriented presentations. Okay, so that's a required field. Then you have to select the track. So the track is the content area. And this is very important to choose because the reviewers will be assigned by the track. And each track aligns with a JALT SIG. So you need to think about what background do you want the reviewers for your presentation to have. So this is an important decision, so think about that. Now you'll be asked, is it a commercial promotion? So if you want to promote commercial products, you need to be an associate member. You cannot do it through the vetted submission form. You need to talk to our business manager about that. Language, you can write your abstract in either English or Japanese. We have reviewers who can review in both those languages. Your presentation can be in any language that other humans understand, but please indicate if you're not going to present in English or Japanese, please make it clear what language your presentation will be in. Then you will be asked for the teaching context. Now, this is important for scheduling. It's not really used for the vetting, but it's important when we try to put the schedule together. So we have a list of different teaching contexts. College and university education is by far the most common, most popular. Conversation and language schools, junior, senior high school, teaching children, assistant language teachers, teaching mature learners, and there's a general category and non-teaching. So we have a few meetings scheduled. Those shouldn't be going through the vetted system, but the context is still there. So you need to choose what is the appropriate context for your presentation. And that's for scheduling, but not for vetting. Following that, you need to enter a short summary, which is limited to 75 words. Now, this will be printed in the conference handbook. So this is the sales pitch to attract an audience at the conference. This is not used for the vetting. This is just for your general audience to tell them what your presentation is about and try and get people to come to see your presentation. So that's important, but it's a different audience than the abstract. So then we come to the abstract. This is what determines the acceptance or rejection. So this is the critical section of your submission. There are 4 sections to this, and the total is 350 words. So you should try to write close to the total. Okay, if you're writing a very short abstract, you're much less likely to be accepted. There won't be as much information in there. So try to write at least 300 words, I would say. But obviously you cannot exceed 350 words. There is also a reference section. Reviewers respond very positively if you can cite literature supporting your submission, but only include works that you've cited within your abstract. Now, we have a structured abstract, so there are 4 main sections. The first one is called relevance. That has a 100-word limit. The contribution research questions is the second, 75 words. Content and method, 75 words, and outcomes and results, 100 words. So that adds up to 350 words. So why did we break it into 4 sections? The reason for this is to prevent authors from omitting key information that the reviewers want to see. Reviewers especially want to see what are the results or the outcomes. What are you going to do? What are you going to show your audience? And many abstract writers do not include this information, or they give very, very vague information, and reviewers respond badly to this. So we want to make sure you include that information. So this is to help you. Now, people often don't like these structured abstracts. It limits your creativity. That is the purpose. We want to stop you trying to be too creative and stick to this format. Your abstract isn't a mystery novel, so please do not make the reviewers work to find the clues, find these crumbs and put it together. Make it really easy for them to find the information they want. So the first section is called relevance. You need to explain the relevance of the presentation with reference to current theory, practice, and research literature. So citing literature is a really important thing to do here. If you are giving a practice-oriented presentation, you should be able to advise about the best practice in the field. So you will probably want to read books about the topic and cite those books. If you're a researcher, you will be looking at research journals, and you should be citing the relevant research journals. Okay, so this is very important to show how your presentation relates to the current best practice in the field. Section 2, the contribution and research questions. So you want to show your reviewers that your proposal has a clear purpose, that you understand very clearly what the purpose of your presentation is, and you can explain it. So for a practice-oriented presentation, explain the purpose of the presentation. Researchers, you want to state your research questions very clearly. And so we know exactly what you're investigating in your research. Section 3, the content or method. What are you planning to do in your workshop? Sorry, in your presentation. That should be presentation. So in a practice-oriented presentation, explain the procedure you will follow. So what are you going to do in this presentation? In a research presentation, how did you do your research? So explain what you did in your research. And finally, we have the results or outcomes. So tell the reviewers what the audience will learn. So for a practice-oriented presentation, explicitly describe what the participants will learn. Research presentation, the results of your completed research. So many people try to submit research submissions for research that isn't finished and they don't have results. You can do that. We can't stop you doing that, but you will suffer badly if you cannot explain what your results are. Many people say that something very vague like, we will present the results of our research. That does not impress reviewers. Reviewers do not like it when you say things like that. So tell us what the audience will learn from your presentation. Finally, there's a reference section. Now, the reference section is not required. You can ignore it if you want to, and the reference section is not counted in the word limit. However, reviewers like to see that you have read literature related to your presentation, so I highly recommend you include citations of literature. It could be books. For some purposes, it might be newspaper articles. If you're talking about public policy or educational policy, newspaper or TV news stories would be the things you cite. So it doesn't have to be research journals. It has to be appropriate to the purpose of your presentation. Now, use the general APA reference system. So within the text, the author and year, and in the reference list, the author, year, title, journal name. Now, Indico cannot handle italics and indents, so you cannot keep the formatting of APA, but just please keep that general order of in your reference list. Now, you may need to reference your own published work. So please do that in the third person. The reason for this is that our reviewers usually work with SIGs and will be familiar with major publications. So if you try to identify yourself as author, it's actually much easier to identify you. So for example, if somebody said this paper extends the author's 1905 model of the invariance of frames of reference, a reviewer would know, well, this is Albert Einstein referring his very famous 1905 paper on relativity. So trying to call yourself the author actually makes it easier to identify yourself. So please refer to yourself in the third person. For example, this study extended Holston and Lake's 2016 analysis of guessing behavior. So it's much harder for people to know that I wrote this if I include myself in the third person. Okay. Now, finally, in the submission form, we ask for your availability, and this is important. Joe, you can present on Friday in the afternoon, Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon and evening, Sunday morning or Sunday afternoon. Now, we have far fewer people available to present on Friday. So you can say, even if it's not your preferred time, you can say it's possible. And this will improve your chances of acceptance. So we will try to give people their preferred time as much as possible, but the more time slots you say are possible, that you're available, the better your chances of acceptance, because mostly because we need to fill those Friday slots. So saying you're available on Friday will help you. But you can say when is your preferred slot. We will try to give it to you and then tell us when it's possible. If you don't know when you will be available, you can leave this blank and we'll try to figure it out later. So Friday is less requested than Saturday, so being able to present on Friday will improve your chance of acceptance. Now, the vetting. Each proposal is blind reviewed by multiple reviewers. They don't know who you are. So you could be super famous last year. If you take a look at the conference handbook, you'll see that Rod Ellis submitted a vetted submission. The reviewers had no idea who he was, that he's this extremely famous person in the field that went through the same system. So the reviewers do not know who you are, even if you're very famous. If you do not write a very good abstract, you might be kicked out. So we rank order them from the highest to lowest using what's called a fair average score. And then you choose the highest rated proposals to fill the number of available slots, 30, 60, or 90-minute slots. But we do not have enough rooms for all the proposals we receive, so we have to reject some. Now, there is an 8-item rubric with a 4-point rating scale. For the title is part of the rubric. So you need a title that clearly describes the topic of the submission. So relevance, the contribution and research questions, the content and method, the results and outcome, and the references. These all follow the structure of your abstract. Then organization. So this should be easy because it's very hard to not follow this organization, but some people still manage to do this. So did you follow the specified format? And is it clear? Is it clearly written, doesn't have major writing errors? So please proofread your abstract. It's very difficult for people who are writing in a second language. Please have a native speaker or somebody who is a good writer check your abstract. If you are a native speaker, you still have to proofread it. There are many, many native speakers who make serious errors in their writing. And I personally am much less tolerant of native speakers who are sloppy than I am of second language writers. It's very difficult for second language writers. So please have somebody proofread and check your abstract. So there is a 4-point rating scale. So there is 0, strongly reject. This is usually because you just have not included the information. And all the way up to 3 points, accept without reservation. So the reviewers rate each point on the rubric on this 4-point scale. So the basis for acceptance and rejection is simply the fair measure score, which is adjusted for rater strictness and leniency. Now, there is a slight exception to this. The TYL, the Teaching Young Learners, or the JALT Junior, is kind of a separate conference within the JALT conference. So this is done separately, and poster sessions are also considered separately. Usually all poster submissions are accepted because we can put a lot of those into one room. But for all the non-JALT Junior and non-poster sessions, we go through from the highest ranked to the lowest ranked until all the available slots are filled. What we do not consider is the author background and the content area. So for example, we do not have a quota for assessment. We do not have a quota for technology. You're competing with everybody. And these are blind reviewed. We do not know who you are. So your background is not considered. And there is no research or practice-oriented quota. We get a lot more research submissions. I would like to see a lot more practice submissions, but we just get a lot more research submissions.